At face value, Barry Jenkins' Moonlight appears to be a black, queer film with one clear message about the importance of acceptance and inclusion. While it does maintain this message, it dips into the broader conversation of the sociocultural impacts on development. I would characterize it as a depiction of Chiron's journey into a socially acceptable version of manhood that ultimately comes at the expense of his emotions and identity. Representation in Moonlight exists at an intersection of race, gender, sexuality, and class. Though these identities cannot be untangled, I will focus on gender specifically for the purposes of this analysis. Moonlight upholds the idea that a culture of toxic masculinity restricts men's personal relationships with love, emotions, and vulnerability. It is a critique of gender as a social construct and as a basis for how we frame our identities. The film goes deeper than just discussions of homosexuality to make a greater statement. Men are requiring and deserving of kindness, unashamed love, affection, and tenderness. These requirements don't impede or detract from a man's masculinity. The first act shows Chiron as Little, the nickname associated with his childhood stage. The soccer scene is an ample presentation of the toxically masculine culture or environment that all the characters exist in. It is nestled between both a display of masculinity being reinforced and a demonstration of the importance of affection and support in male interactions. Kevin distracts from Little's poor performance in the game and catches up with him after he leaves. Kevin wants Little to see value in himself, and he does this by showing him how to be masculine, or rather by allowing him to perform an act of perceived masculinity. Because it is masculinity that is meant to be the vessel that will bestow value unto Little. It will supposedly transform him from the meek and unassertive boy that is too afraid to fight back into a strong and aggressive man that jumps at any opportunity to show off his manliness. The second act shows Chiron in his teenage years as a high school student. The fight scene is a testament to how toxic masculinity is sweeping and unrelenting in who it affects. There will never be a fixed point that a man can reach in order to be unquestionably accepted. They must endlessly nurture this facade of emotionlessness. Kevin exclusively presented the side of himself to the world that was straight, manly, and unaffected. We aren't meant to view Kevin as another bully or a villain. Instead, we're asked to evaluate the conditional nature of masculinity. Kevin is afforded grace from the bullies because he maintains his masculine image. Yet he's still not rewarded for his masculinity because he has to endlessly feed it. He felt cornered when Terrell challenged him to beat up Chiron, because men are not supposed to retreat from an opportunity for violence and macho displays. The crushing pressure of a hyper-masculine environment drove Kevin to attack Chiron, despite his connection and genuine care for him. Masculinity was the most important thing. This reality stung Chiron more than the physical wounds. Scenes before the fight, Chiron experienced his first romantic and sexual encounter, and it was with Kevin. They shared an emotional connection that developed through vulnerability. But this exchange of emotions and connection could only ever take place away from others. Any visible displays of love and vulnerability would have to come at the expense of safety and acceptance from their peers. The third act introduces us to Black, an unrecognizable Chiron in his adult years. The diner scene is especially powerful in shaping the overall reception of the film. Kevin cooks a meal for Black. This act in itself is a display of affection and care. It's a form of vulnerability that is looked down upon in relation to potent masculinity. In his adulthood, Black transformed into the picture of hypermasculinity. He outwardly displays his wealth and success. He maintains a rugged, muscular figure. He intimidates other men and tries to reinforce his power over them. After fully settling into this masculine image, his identity is lost, or rather, it is suppressed. Black later reveals to Kevin that he has not had a sexual encounter with anyone since the night on the beach. He hides his true identity and sexuality from himself and from the world. It becomes a shield that protects him, the kind of protection that he would have benefited from in his adolescence. In the final few moments of the film, Chiron and Kevin share a moment of emotional intimacy. This shot is specifically powerful in carrying the film's message. The image of a hyper-masculine man finding solace and comfort in the arms of another man carries more weight than dialogue ever could. We're never told that Chiron and Kevin still have romantic interest in one another after all those years. Regardless of whether or not they do, the first thing we notice is the innocence of this connection. The shield of masculinity is dropped, and Chiron is brought back to being the little boy on the beach in need of support and love. He is able to exhale the toxic masculinity that has poisoned his development and livelihood. Moonlight's representation of gender and masculinity extends beyond just sexuality and into vulnerability and feeling. Juan's relationship to Chiron as a father figure is one of the most touching and beautiful depictions of connection I've seen in a film. While its meaning as a queer film shouldn't be undermined, it's important to embrace the wider message that Chiron's journey delivers. It seeks to break apart our individual and collective notions of all that a man should be. It attacks the dehumanizing and racist stereotype that Black men do not experience emotions on a level that is equal to their non-Black counterparts. It affirms that sexuality doesn't dictate emotion, and being emotional doesn't determine sexuality. All boys and men, irrespective of their sexuality, must be afforded the space to let down the masculine shield, free of concealment and shame.
You know, love makes the world go round, and love makes the seesaws go up and down, and it makes the trees grow tall. But the most important thing of all that makes a boy and girl say they feel so good now.